America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to start out with roll call. We'll start to my right. Just name. Diane.
Teresa.
Mike. Hartel Cooper.
Dan Licht.
Ryan Crowbar.
Chad Miller.
Bruce West.
Andy Schrader.
Harris Barton.
Alan Walker. Jeff is missing.
There's a couple that say that they're going to be here. Joe has that list. Claim forms are all, everybody have that claim form filled out? Okay. First thing on the agenda then is our approval of last agenda. Joan had emailed that out to everybody. Did anybody have an opportunity to read that?
Yep.
So is there a motion to approve that?
I had one change. I thought I nominated Tom for the assistant chair.
So I think that was like a simultaneous nomination maybe, or?
Well, Chad, did you not, I think they had you down for nominating Tom, did you?
I think I had nominated for the vice chair was, Bruce.
Yeah,
Yep.
that was only, yeah, thing that I noticed that we've been off.
So do we have a process in place to amend our minutes? For that one correction of a nominee, or is that a new point?
They typically aren't signed unless they're approved.
So, Mr. Chair, if there's a motion to approve with corrections, the commission can then vote it, they'll be corrected, and you can sign the corrected copy.
Is there a motion to approve on a correction of the minutes?
I'll make that motion with the correction.
So we have,
I'll second it.
we have a motion. So all in favor, sign by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Who seconded it?
Al seconded. All opposed? Ayes carried. So the minutes are approved with that correction. Next thing on the agenda is there was a statement of having a mission statement. Now, part of the group's mission is to fact find, solve a solution to the problem, and gather information and research, and come to the table with an open mind to do that. If we're not here to do that open mind part, we shouldn't be here. And if we're not willing to do the research, shouldn't be here. And if we're just gonna be here to complain, we shouldn't be here. So, our goal is.
That's a long mission statement.
Right, so our goal is to help our city in the best possible way save money and find a solution to the issue that we have. I fortunately had an opportunity to talk to a lot of individuals that are on this group throughout the course of the week, which is kind of fun, because my job allows that. Anybody else have any comments on the mission statement? Get the job done?
With an open mind.
Get the job done with an open mind?
So, sounds good.
I like it. All in favor of get the job done with an open mind? Do we have a motion for that?
Short and sweet.
Chad, you wanna,
Send it. I'll make a motion.
you make a motion to get the job done with an open mind? Can I just, and a second?
Who was the second?
Tom seconded. All in favor of get the job done with an open mind?
What?
With an open mind. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes carried. So our mission statement is get the job done with an open mind. Okay, so our old business, we had the great opportunity to have individuals show us what was going on. Pointing out the things that need to be worked on, pointing out the things that we need to find solutions for. You may have any questions questions, comments on the tour? Anybody have any additional information that they were wanting to request from the individuals that gave us our tour last week, our last meeting?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
So I think the intent tonight would be kind of debrief the tour, so hear from each one of the members, you know, what your impressions were of the existing facilities, all three of them, and kind of highlight what you saw in your impression as to what works in these facilities, what doesn't work, what needs attention, and then kind of, as we get to the end of each area, talk about what stands out as the top priorities in those areas. Somewhat related to this, the city has asked the building official to do a walkthrough and kind of a formal evaluation too, that we can then add to that part of the discussion to add some fact-based code compliance type construction data and information, so.
With that said, then let's go around the table. Let's start with Al on what you saw, what you think, and we'll continue from there.
Well, I think that the offices, both in the maintenance and the main office here, need to have, to be expanded and separated, you know, more separation rather than just being able to come in and walk, you know, just go into a window, you know, have their own office space and stuff. And the same thing off in the shop too, because right now they're just using the same space for office and parking. And then over in the fire department too, I think the rooms, the offices over there need to be enlarged, they're just too small. And also the shop area should be expanded, just so they got room for equipment, so they're not so tight to be less hazardous for them guys to walk around in there.
Mr. Chair, maybe to just kind of focus it, we should deal with City Hall first, then Public Works, then.
Take one area.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna deal with City Hall first, but I think, like, Kevin knows, we'll come back to you on the fire side.
Oh, okay.
Pierce Martin, so what I found, obviously for me, the building just doesn't serve the purpose of acting for a city hall. I think the space is inadequate, I believe the working space, the offices are inadequate. That was my initial impression of this building.
Andy Schrader, and first thing that strikes me is the exterior, the foundation issues. There's a lot of deterioration around the exterior. You can see where the wood, the treated wood is actually deteriorating, and if that goes, then the whole building doesn't matter how good it is because it's going to come down on top of it. I think it's outlived its usefulness. The building style served its purpose for its time. Material and methods that it was built, it served us well for a number of years, but nothing lasts forever. Everything has an expiration on it, including us. And then on top of that is the functionality of the space. It just doesn't serve the purpose of what the city hall really needs without some significant rearrangement.
Yeah, you know, I agree with the first three comments. My concern is, you've got it, I'm sure that Zach and Phil, you know, move their trucks out as fast as they can. But you've got carbon monoxide that's coming through both, I don't care that you have a little vestibule here. It's going to come into this space. And I don't know if you have a carbon monoxide alarm in this area, but when you've got two city staff working in here, and as we all know, carbon monoxide's odorless, colorless, you know, I've got firefighters that know what I'm talking about. And if that creeps in here without the knowledge, I mean, I'm talking about safety issue here for the staff. You know, and so that's just one thing, you know, but, you know, and Zach's got his quote office out there, you know, and he's got such a nice desk, and, you know, every time I walk in there, I wanna mess it up, you know, but, you know, we need to have a separation. I agree with, you know, the township hall, that this has been for X amount of years, and I'm sorry, I don't know how many years it's been, so.
82.
Okay, thank you. You know, it served its purpose, you know, well,
It was built in 82.
you know, but, you know, we need to look forward. We need to look, okay, where's Baldwin Township, where's the city of Baldwin going to be 5 years, 10 years, 25 years down the road? And I think that's what the whole mission, the goal of the statement is to to look down the road and how we can improve. And I think, there's no council area, sure, we've got our tables, things like that. The separation that was talked about, when you walk in, boom, you're right here on top of the staff. And so we definitely need some separation for our staff.
I will ask again, just say your name when you get this one, Chad.
Chad, it's hard to, say much more than what the rest of them said, but I almost gotta agree with everybody else here is the functionality of the building it's not there anymore. When you come in here and you wanna talk to Joan, but they have a meeting sitting here, it's hard to coordinate business on both sides. Offices is huge, voting, election time, they're out in the maintenance shop voting. It's just, like Bruce said, we need to look forward 25, 50 years down the road and see where we need the building, what we need to do with the building. It's just, my big thing is functionality.
Brian, again, just like everyone in Trevor, I'm gonna agree with everyone all the way down the road. It's the space and the workability. I've been dealing with Joan and Kathy before for 24 years now, and it's always meetings here, and I'm whispering as I'm trying to do stuff for fire department over there, to go around and try to do it so that they're not hearing our business and we're hearing their business. And it's just, I look at all these around where I work, seeing the difference, and I always feel bad for Joan and these guys that come in and you can be right at them, and they're trying to do their stuff behind the thing, and people are watching them when they're standing there. It kind of, and then coming to a meeting here, it just looks, I don't know, we throw a bunch of tables together and call it our city hall. I think we're better than that. I think Baldwin's better than that. It's just the size and the workability that's not there anymore. 4 years was enough.
Yeah, there's no, Dick Marshall, there's no question about what everybody said. I want to bring up again, like I did last time, that we are a brand new city. We want to grow into our spending, we don't want to jump into $12, $15 million of debt right now. What I think we need, as long as we talk about common sense, is we need to do what we can do. And all of these buildings and groups are tied together. So what I think would be a beneficial thing would be to take care of the must-haves for the fire department and the road department, and here, and we can, I was saying, we can expand the fire department, we can give the road group 3 lean-tos out there to store their buildings, and we can steal that next office, that next big building there for the city hall over a period of time for the next 4 or 5 years, and get everybody taken care of as best we can for the next 4 or 5 years, see how we grow. The buildings that we do will be that much more saleable or usable for somebody else. And we'll save a whole bunch of money and let our tax base grow. I'm not opposed to giving the fire department a new building. I'm not opposed to building a new city hall. I just don't think we can do it within the next 4 or 5 years. So we need to be sensible about it if we can, and take it a step at a time. Fire department, what is your basic must-have needs? We're gonna solve those. Road people, what are your basic must-have needs? We're gonna solve those. City hall, same thing. And we'll save a lot of money doing it, and then we can grow into and have a big fire department, a big city hall down the road in the next 5, 6, 7 years. My opinion.
Mr. Chair, so Mr. Marshall, what you outlined are solutions. If you add on to the fire department, if you add on, so as you went through the city hall space specifically, what did you see as the needs in this space?
In this meeting, they need more room. Now, we can't, if we can go up, that's one thing. If we can go out this way or back that way, that's another thing. We
have to explore the possibilities. Can we steal that building over there for a short period of time? I don't know, but we're passing out ideas here, and we need to be able to look at each individual. Is it possible to help the fire department out for the next 4 or 5 years so that they're healthy and happy over there, or healthy and somewhat happy over there, you know? While we get our feet under us, and I think we have to go through each and every one of them and say, okay, what can we, and we haven't done that here, we have all the list of what their needs are, but we haven't looked at what can be done to satisfy those needs.
That's part of the called research and development process. On day 2 of a committee meeting, there's not gonna be a solution that's gonna stand out for us to be able to achieve that. Right now, we're in the investigative stage of putting the work together to find out what the needs are, which we're going around the table to discover.
I
what the needs
understand
are.
that.
And then we're going to dive into it in a different situation further on. Me personally, if I'm going to state what I saw, is there's a lot of need that needs to be done for safety, security. Has nothing to do with, trying to, the space has already been outgrown, it's been outgrown for the last 5 to 8 years. When you look at this, the actually working conditions of the maintenance department, they're doing a good job of trying to put a Band-Aid on an artery. You've got structural issues that are, if you walk around the backside of this building, there's stuff that's going on that doesn't look like it here. You've got water issues that are leaking, that's a major, not only do you have mold buildup that's back there somewhere that nobody's ever addressed or talked about, so that's an abatement situation. So if you go to try to do a remodel or whatever, it's an abatement situation. You have no handicap access that's available. I mean, there's just certain things and guidelines that it's not following at this moment. Nobody's saying anything about it because they're trying to make do. So we have to look past that making do side. And sometimes you can only put so many patches on a flat tire and it just doesn't run.
I don't think I have anything to add. It's, everyone's kind of repeating the same thing.
Tom Walter, I would have one thing to stress. The company that I work for, a division of Caterpillar, one thing we're super focused on is safety. And when I look at this building, I go, wow, this is not safe from a people standpoint or some of the other, entrance point things. And I think, its outlet is, it's, as everybody else has said, it's capability, but to put the safety into for the employees, because there's a lot of weird people out here, right? And somebody could walk in here and easily do a lot of harm, and it would be very beneficial to, upgrade the safety. So that's my input.
It's Teresa. I agree with essentially what everybody's saying. I think, like you say, the use of the building, the fact that the handicap accessibility is not there, for me seems to be a priority. I've heard from several neighbors where, as was mentioned earlier, the voting, where you have precinct 1 and precinct 2 and the lines were exceptionally long in the rain because the space was just not available. It seemed to be one of the biggest, and so the size is a concern. But yeah, I agree, we've got to balance all of that out, but what's priority? I think I would add to what you were saying as well, just maybe in a different way. Safety would be one thing, but for me, security is another, and it's not necessarily security of the building. But as someone who works for a city who has spent the last week and a half without access to any of the city files, and we are literally starting from scratch. If we're a baby city and we can start from the beginning and we can learn from some of those other things and not have to try and recreate the wheel because everything is lost. This is the time to do that, and that's not possible in what I see here. There's just, there's items there that I would label priority as we begin. It's an opportunity at a beginning that a little money now saves a lot of money later. I hate spending that money, I get that too, because we don't have a lot, but it can save a lot later.
Just a,
Go ahead. I was just gonna ask if Ms. Barnes wanted to
Yeah,
expand on some of those things, examples that you're referring to.
yeah, I was gonna ask her about, having, security and documentation, and having documentation lost.
Yep.
The understanding of what we have and you having history of losing that now that's fresh.
So there are state regulations where you have to keep certain documents for a certain amount of time, and I'm not, at one point it used to be 7 years, I know some of that's changing now because a lot of stuff is going digital. So I know we mentioned that the file room, and I'm looking at a lot of the books just right over there. Yeah, so if we had any sort of fire, if it's not backed up, if it's not digital, but you kind of have to have both. I mean, we were in the process of trying to go digital. After COVID, almost everything was digital, and when that digital instantaneously becomes not available, and it was literally instantaneously, all of a sudden, and there's no backups, there's no nothing, I mean, I've spent the last week and a half without any records whatsoever. It's been very, very difficult. Trying to recreate all of that and go, where is it? Do we have it on paper? Do we not have paper? And, if you can put some of those pieces in place as we get started, it may be a little more money now, but like I say, it's gonna cost
Jill,
somebody else a lot of money later.
can we get this her claim for you? I'm gonna go to you, and I'm gonna come back.
Diane, so like 3 people in, ditto. There definitely needs improvements, you just look around and see without even getting into the actual like infrastructure itself. Yeah, and I don't know if this goes along with it or if it's in advance, but one of the questions that I had is, do we know if there are any like potential like grants or loans specific for this particular kind of project, like building a new city hall, whereas it's not 100% just coming out of residents' tax dollars? Because I know that was a big concern with a lot of the residents was, okay, we're gonna become a city and now our taxes are gonna jack up. So I was just wondering if there was anything like that out there, or if that's something that could be looked into. And again,
That's
my
research.
apologies
No,
if
good
that's
question.
like okay.
Yeah, those, as soon as the infrastructure situation came about, I started digging into state stuff. Some of those things may not be available any longer. So, but that's a subject matter of research that we wanna investigate, because there's a lot of things that might be available, and might be done. And sometimes it just goes without being said, and it's not done because nobody looks for it.
Typically, that would get that in the state bonding bill.
State bonding.
And that's not gonna happen this year or next year, and most likely in the next biennium with the deficit that they're projecting.
Right.
So you'd be looking, minimum 5 years out.
But that's good information to know, because that's one of those things where it's like, as unfortunate as it would be to continue putting Band-Aids on bullet wounds, if the ultimate end game ended up being, if that's what we did, to have it be where in X amount of years, we could potentially get bonds and stuff like that, so, yeah, okay.
Mr.
cool.
Chair, it's a great comment. When things were humming in the state level, I'll give you one example. City of Virginia just got $6.5 million to build a new public safety building, fire station, police station. you know, and I know the chief will know some of the other ones around the state that have received funding. Many fire departments have, some cities for city halls, et cetera. But as just was commented, Mike said, with a projected deficit a couple years for the next biennium, you know, instead of X amount of billion, now to be, you know, single-digit billion in the red, you know, the ability to get some bonding for, you know, public safety, fire station, city hall combination, whatever it would be, pretty nil, unfortunately. You know, it's, a lot of this now for Baldwin's gonna be timing.
Mr. Chair? So I would just add to that, you know, obviously if you're tying any new facility to the fire department, that probably helps attract outside funding. And that's ultimately a solution at the end of the process. You know, you do the needs assessment, you say, okay, we've got these needs and we can solve it by fixing what's here, or doing a brand new building over here, but maybe there's a phased approach in between. And then you kind of work it, and the recommendation comes to, okay, we ultimately need a new facility, but we could get by for a period of time by doing this here. Or if you're doing things here, you're gonna have to shift people around, and it's gonna have, you know, there's a domino effect to what you do to fix what's here without just jumping immediately down the road. So this process should bear all of that out, so that the committee can then make a recommendation to the council.
That's the goal. With open minds. Name,
Amy, Kortmeyer.
what we're discussing right now, Amy, is we're just reviewing the tour. And we're talking about the city first, city hall first, and what you saw as inefficiencies. Would you like to say what you saw?
And again, I apologize that I was late, I'm just coming from work, I teach a night class in town, so. But what I saw is, again, when you're doing office work, especially the computer things that you guys were talking about, what you should be able to have is access to those things anytime, anywhere, if it's in this building or another building. So if that infrastructure is something that, because you said you just lost some things?
Yeah. We had a network security issue is what they're calling it.
It's gone. And so that's the tough stuff, is just spending the money on, you know, or knowing what the right setup is.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that in itself needs some research, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But starting at the beginning is nice.
Yeah. But as far as, fire, right, if something was to happen to the building, if those are the only documents, that's really tough if you don't at least have somewhere fireproof or something to keep those.
Exactly.
And that's a pretty easy first step too, you know, it's short-term solution.
And there's a lot of things our residents rely on the township and or city to have documentation of. You know, especially if they sell their house and they've got septic systems or other things, I routinely get phone calls day in and day out, well, do you have this survey, do you have this document, do you have that document? As a city, you're kind of expected to have it for your residents, and it's really hard to say, I don't have access to it.
Mr. Chair. So that discussion is a good point, because, you know, throughout the incorporation, it was talked about the priority of the town board at the time was business as usual, Baldwin Township, City of Baldwin. But one thing that did change was the responsibilities of the city by taking back planning and zoning and building official and assessing. So all of that is now based here, whereas it used to be based out in Elk River. So what that means is not only data storage, but now there's the need for the planner, the building official, or the engineer to meet with people here, whereas they would have gone to use space down there. So it does put more strain on City Hall facility in terms of what has changed from township to city.
Any additional comments? I think you covered that pretty well.
I have a quick question. So something when we're talking about, just from what I heard is that, I think about the Oaks Savannah Learning Center, how they didn't do everything at once. They started with, you know, some of the building, or part of the building, or part of the things in the building. Like, what are the most important things? If there were to be part of a building built on the new site, getting rid of this when something is built over there? Like, can we sustain both places for part of the time?
We're not trying on that solution side yet.
Okay.
We're still in the investigative stage of what our issues are. And then we're gonna try to go through and facilitate exactly what you're saying.
Okay.
You know, whether or not we have what we need to do to survive, as one individual points it out, so that we can grow with it. But no matter how we slice and dice it, we're gonna have to plan for something. And we have to figure out how we can make that plan work to get to that point, while saving people money. While investigating grants and loans and private parties that wanna do donations, that kind of type of thing. Let's go into the fire station, okay? And I'll start with the fire station. There's safety issue after safety issue after safety in the fire station, okay? The chief doesn't ask for the additional space just because he wants to see the boots and jackets. There's not enough breathable airspace. You back the trucks in, you have salt on them, you have all the other stuff that goes on. We're talking about CO, it's an issue. It's an issue. That's just on the base level of how confined that space is. You know, you start a truck, you have to start it. It's sucking up the oxygen regardless. And lung issues are number one problem for firemen. And there's no ways around it. Why I got out of the fire department. Lung issues. So that, we have equipment that's there. They're taking great care of the equipment. But when your equipment is confined, you can't care for it the best that you possibly can, because you just don't have the space. You don't have the space to draw hoses, you don't have the space to dry hoses, you don't have the space to flush, you just don't have the space. And then you don't have the training space of just education-wise. And the number one thing that keeps a fire person alive is education, is the training. Sounding the floor before you walk in, just so there's not enough just space. And I can see in an emergency situation where, you know, we have a great crew that's there that works like a glove, but in an emergency situation, you're pumping shoulders. You know, and then you have structural issues over there too. You have freezing door issues, and you have water issues, and you have piping issues. And they're doing a good job of trying to make that work too. So when you look at it, there's nothing that's being asked about that's not needed from doing the homework side. They've outgrown the space. And with the fire calls that they're doing now, you don't have any place to put anything. There's nowhere to, and just nothing.
Well, I think, yeah, they need more space for the trucks to separate them, so that there's more room to get, you know, it is a safety deal, trip or fall or whatever between them, trying to get to your suits or whatever in there, and it'd be nice to have a couple, at least two more bays, drive-through bays. Possibly, I mean, I don't know if you could do three, if you could have like.
Let's look at the problem that we have now and not the solution.
Well, I think, yeah, bigger offices, personal offices especially, you know, because you try to do business during the day, and, you know, you're squeezed. You know, you might probably have to go upstairs to get paperwork that you need to finish your phone call, you know?
I had to lose weight just to get around my desk.
Well, okay, no comments.
I didn't have a problem. We didn't have a problem. I need to lighten the mood a little bit.
Is that all?
Yeah, and then the lighting and stuff in there too should be updated a little bit, because, I mean, they've got lights in there, but it could be better. And same thing with the water issue and the leakage and stuff in the pipes, that should be dealt with first, you know.
Yeah, for me, again, it boils back down to 10 gallons of water and 5-gallon pail, it just doesn't work anymore. The upstairs spaces were absolutely inadequate for what is needed for today's modern fire station. 30 years ago, maybe that building works for a fire station with 2 rigs, but certainly not for the amount of rigs that are in that now. And especially with the health needs of the firefighters nowadays, I didn't see anything over there that necessarily addresses those needs today. As far as the extractors and stuff like that. As far as on the hose side of things, the drying of the hose, I didn't see anywhere a hose tower of any sort. So obviously for me in that building as well, the heating issue, there was no makeup air. I didn't see any makeup air units over there. So again, to me, that would be my point.
I can repeat the same thing or agree with the same thing as the size. You know, under those stressful conditions, the number of people that come in and out of that space, I can't imagine bumping into each other again with all the stress again going on. I think that's woefully inadequate size.
You can move past me. I think it hasn't, kept up with the NFPA standards, especially when it comes to separation of the turnout gear, from the general population, let's call it. When they come in after a structure fire or whatever, and before the gear's washed, and the airtight of the turnout gear area, so then it's vented, and things like that. It's changed so much for the health and safety, again, health and safety of the firefighter, and people coming into the building. The general public coming in, they could come in a day after a structure fire. Mike, everybody else around the table knows what a fire station smells like after a day after a structure fire. Without proper ventilation. In a week after, you walk in and say, oh, I just had a structure fire. And so so much of that has changed in this building, needs, that change.
Adding on to what all these other people have said, I guess one of my bigger things on the fire department side is when it comes to the training aspect, it works great if we're outside on a night like this, but in winter months or rainy months, I gotta pull trucks out to get my guys trained because we've got no space to train. Now, if it's 30 below zero, we got trucks sitting outside trying to keep them running so they don't freeze up. It's the only way that we can really do any kind of training. Like everybody else said, stepping over everything, you got guys and gals running into the fire station to get their gear on, they're jumping over trailers, they're trying to get around trucks, and it's just, it's to the point where it's, we have trucks sitting outside because we don't have any room right now. Trailers out back, we're out of room.
Brian? We lost room, or we lost that size 10 years ago. We've been trying to deal with it. It needs more size. For me, it's more I'm like the safety guy over there. I'm always on everybody about it, but it is this, my concern if somebody's gonna, we've slammed on the brakes to not hit people that are coming in their car to walk at their park, and then they're walking across the front to get into another door as the truck's going out. And when you're in the trucks, you gotta make sure you look down, look left and right. You shouldn't have to do that going out of the building. You started the mufflers right where our gear is, so you're trying to put your gear on while the truck's running, and somebody runs over to our inlet van, which is in the back, and it doesn't suck anything out anyway, but it's there for looks, I think. So it's just, to me, it's just the health and safety, and we ran out of size a long time ago. All yours, Dick.
Nothing.
We had a meeting this big, and I think everybody saw within a couple of minutes last week that it's inadequate and just keep repeating. It's multiple issues.
Yeah, I think we've had a lot of good anecdotal information, but it would be good to quantify some of this, but maybe are there like near miss reports? Or are there injury reports that we could say, 10 guys got hurt because of the space, or 10 girls, or whoever, so it's just trying to quantify the data that we've been talking about here, with some real facts. Is there any of
So we've really tried to emphasize safety over there, and very fortunately, we have not had any injury reports that have been reported up the chain of command. Now, as a firefighter got hurt going through there and not reported, that may or may not have happened, but we have not, we have not had any injury reports or anything like that within the station. Near misses, I think that's another one that they're just not reporting to us, and I'm not getting that anecdotal evidence on that.
Documenting that you got motion issue.
Firefighters are notorious for not saying stuff about whether they're hurt and stuff.
I would believe that.
And Tom, I may add too that, with the addition of Bluegill, there's about 400 calls.
We're probably gonna, right now, we're at 120 right now, we're probably gonna get to 360 to 370. Blue Hill is at.
Coming in and out.
Yeah.
That's perfect, because that was my next question. It's like, okay, I mean, if the calls are growing, the risk of near misses or the risk of an injury is going to escalate, so.
Yeah, the calls have gone up since, I got some numbers that we started back in 2010, we had 199 calls out of that station. Last year we had 349. So it's, way more than 50% or 100% of call, 50% call raise on that. And just more times you do stuff, the more chance you're gonna have that kind of thing.
Exponentially, the risk is gonna grow, and someone's gonna get hurt at some point.
And that's why we train. We train a lot and we emphasize safety at all times.
I also, one of the things that I guess I wasn't aware of how really a fire station works, but that water supply for filling the trucks, that's,
It's inadequate.
yeah, and I mean, that's kind of the whole deal, isn't it? Right? Like not only do we want our firefighters safe, but we wanna have what we need to put the fires out.
In order to save money when they built the station, they put in, I believe, a 4-inch well, and it would take 20 minutes to fill a tender. Well, you don't have 20 minutes to do that. So then they added another one, so it produces more, but it still takes almost 10 minutes, I think, would you guys concur, to fill a tender. So what we do, in order to expedite getting water, we contract with the city of Princeton, pay them for water, because we can get it out of their pump station within 4 minutes. We can fill a rig in 4 minutes there.
Do you know the horsepower of the pump?
Our pump,
On the well.
the well, I do not offhand. In maintenance, I'm not sure.
It's like, where are you looking?
It's probably, I would say it's probably given us about, 40 PSI out of there, it's just not.
I had a pump problem, or well problem today, so I had my well guy out, and anyway, so that's why I'm asking. Anyway, 1 horsepower pump was delivering about 30 gallons per minute. My well, just as a reference.
Yeah, so we have a 4-inch line, we put the 4-inch line out of there, and we try to flow water out of the rig during training. It collapses the line, it just doesn't keep up with it, where a normal hydrant, we never have an issue with that. And that's just a case of it. I'd like to see a 70, PSI coming out of there, 7 gallons a minute out of there. I'm thinking 20 to 30 tops is coming out of there.
Brian and I were coming to the meetings before they even put it up, and the things they did to save $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. Originally, they didn't even plan on that 4-inch was simply, what was it, Brian, to fill a 6,000 gallon tank that they put underneath the station.
We had,
they
they
thought we could
originally,
hook up to and draft out of.
they originally had just a normal house well
House well.
that they put, and they put a tank that's still underneath the ground that we sealed up. And they were gonna fill that, and then we were gonna suck it out into one of our trucks every time we had a call. It made no sense, but that's what they
And then
did.
well over a day to refill.
And then they added the 4, and they had the 3 and the 4, but there was a switch that if you didn't turn one switch on before you turned the other switch, you only got one, you didn't get the other. And then they took that out, and now they have just a 4-inch, and it's still, to fill our 3,000 gallon tender, it takes a little over 12 minutes.
But you still have to drive to town. to get the water.
We do right at the well, right when you come in, you take 45 right when you turn in.
Okay.
That right there is where we fill up for that. And if we go south, Zimmerman lets us use their first one, which is at like 270th somewhere.
Found that, you know, when there's fire, in order to quickly turn around tenders, because we have to deliver water, we're gonna go to town, pay Princeton for that water to make it work. This is just.
So you have a total of how much that costs then?
The cost, they charge us $70 approximately for every 3,000 gallons, so it's not a huge cost, but it is a cost, probably, I would say over the course of a year, we probably kick in $1,500, you know. Thereabouts, $1,500, $2,000 a week. Pay all.
On the system here, is there any kind of electronic control, like variable displacement pump or anything like that? It's just
On or off.
Yeah, on or off switch. Very, very basic.
Again, kind of the same thing, the space was one of the biggest things I noticed, that's what everybody else is saying, and I know I'm all about fireman safety. I fully respect our first responders of all kinds. I know it was asked about numbers for fireman injury, but I look at it a different way. That space constraint and getting vehicles in and out, getting people into the building and getting people out, costs us time. Costs us response time. That is something we do track. If we get a phone call in, how long does it take us to get to that? And if we're having to go all the way over to Blue Hill and do others, are our response times longer? If we build something or have something that has more room, that is safer for our firefighters, our response time is actually gonna go down and improve, and then the safety of our residents is better. Because the response time is a big piece for our first response on all sides. And so to me, the space hinders that response time. That was just numbers I was looking at.
I don't mean to sound like a broken record or anything, but, you know. But I agree exactly what you're saying, which is, I don't know, maybe it's good being last. But I also agree, like, the safety, huge component, as well as the size, and how it has been said, that size, it was grown out of 8 to 10 years ago. And it's a huge factor we should put in, especially because you guys aren't even up to the 40 firefighters that you can have, right? Yeah, so like it's just gonna keep growing as well, and.
Good point.
So as you look at this statement of time, space, water response, does that also incorporate that a new location, if there were one, would have to have a water source facilitated there? Besides just a well?
When we researched this whole thing, the last 2 years prior to this, I was on that committee. We researched having its own well with a pump house that would supply us with plenty of water. They actually have an outside hydrant and an inside hydrant that would supply all of our trucks.
But would you want to think bigger than that, so that therefore, if you had to facilitate water around that area, and the city grow to be able to afford that?
As in like a water tower? We just had a pump house, that would give us enough, as pretty much as one hydrant would.
No, I get that, but if you're facilitating a new location of City Hall, and this is just talking, City Hall, fire station, and you need to have water that's available there. If you're going to have to put water that's available there, and you want your city around it to grow and pay for it, would you not make it available so that you could have it available to them?
On my big rig.
If you allow me, so Pease has a water tower, 30,000 gallons. Not huge. They got it from a grant, totally paid for. Those are possibilities, and that's that research thing that you have to do. We would not need a water supply like in one of the Elk River water towers. We just need something that would cover that near area to start with. I'm just saying what I'm saying because it's a short-sighted situation. You're looking at just a fire station. We're talking about facilitating the city of Baldwin. And the city of Baldwin incorporates all of those personal needs and personal gains and personal wants. So if you're looking at projecting 5-10 years out, well, you're gonna dig a well, but if you have on the backside of your fire station, commercial development that needs city sewer and city water, or city water at least, guess what? You have it available to them. So now you have a bigger tax base, so you can go after a Runnings or some of these other bigger companies, because the septic system they can handle, but they always need water. So if you're gonna have to do something like it, you have to think about it.
Mr. Chairman, to add on to that, one thing I will say, once that water is deemed potable, now you have the Minnesota Department of Health involved, and that's a whole different animal,
Yeah, that's true too.
so.
But you're looking at the future, not looking at today.
We are, yeah, I totally understand, it makes sense, it's a good, it makes
Cost
sense,
effectiveness.
Yeah.
Cost effectiveness.
but that's a whole different animal.
I get that, but you're talking about building a city.
But I think that's a good piece to look at as a phased unit, you know? And again, we're back to, let's look at what we need versus necessarily those interim solutions in the end. It's good to have a goal. I don't know if it's there, yeah.
Just to add to what I said as well, the accessibility of being in this location in particular, how long does it generally take for you guys to get to a fire that is potentially on the other side of 169, or where it's not on this side?
It depends, if it's 9 or south, it's a little easier because we'll go to 9, but if we go this way and go across rush hour, people don't care when we put our truck on there with lights and sirens, they don't care. You can just might as well go out there and try to stop them with your hands, so.
Sad
It depends.
commentary of our time.
We try to.
That makes me mad, but it's true.
We try to go down to 9 if we can, just because then we can go either way. If you cut this way, which would be shorter, but we're not gonna get in there, they don't like us.
Mr. Chair, this is probably a good time, I was thinking this could happen at a future meeting, but, you know, the chief has talked with the planning commission and the city council about the idea of response times, not only from this location or another, but barriers, 169. So, I don't know, Scott, or the other firefighters, want to go on?
Well, all this, with the fire station becoming too small, I researched and found that 30 acres in the city, the town was able to buy that down there. That's at 9 and 45. You can go to Blue Hill, you can go across to the east of 169, extremely easy, you can go north and south, extremely easy. That's what, fire stations are location.
Oh, yeah.
Just from, one of the things from the corporation hearing that came up was they talked about the fire service and that, and, you know, Princeton's fire station is in a very poor location for response to where they need to get to. I mean, they can't get on to 169 easily, except going north and then back south if they had to, that kind of thing. One of the things here is that we have a real hard time, and they reiterated it, you can't get across 169, and it is a danger to people coming 70 miles an hour. We know they all do 70 miles an hour. When a big rig pulls out and needs to get all the way across there, that is a safety hazard, where entering on ramps is, that calms it down and that kind of thing. That's part of that deal. And one of the other things in talking with the planning commission and that kind of thing is looking at substation. Now, substation does not have to be a Taj Mahal, it can be a basic, but it's just a substation. Looking for something on the east side of 169 to do a substation. Blue Hill has talked about putting in a building there for fire rigs over there, so we'd be able to have response on both sides, for everybody from this side to that side. For Baldwin, we have rigs coming from both directions. We have 8 firefighters out of Blue Hill right now, so.
Question? Are there any other townships that are contacting you looking to have service out of this facility, such as Blue Hill?
We've had conversations, but that gets to be a touchy thing too, because there was a lot of
tanks when we took over Blue Hill. At this time, I haven't had any recent contact with anybody, but for instance, Princeton drives through Baldwin to get to Spencerbrook. They have to go through Baldwin to get to Spencerbrook to provide service over there. They provide it for, I think, the western third or western half of Spencerbrook.
Follow-up question, seems obvious, but I want to ask it. When you have Blue Hill, does it help defer the cost and make it cheaper for all of us?
Yeah, they pay us, last year they paid us $55,000 for service, and that covers, just basic, rig maintenance, that kind of thing, and all the salaries for the calls, so. And there's a formula, I'm sure that, some of the people are familiar with, service contracts, and we look at it every year, and we will never lose money going to provide Blue Hill. We end up with a little bit of benefit to all.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Public Works? You skipped Public Works. Public Works? The second page of this handout.
She starts, and see
No,
what
other questions?
I agree.
I was just asking any other questions in reference to that subject.
Well, I thought you were.
No.
Come on.
Let's start on that side. We didn't want a ditto. Yes, you can't say ditto. We didn't want another ditto.
Right under the bus.
I was like, as long as Ellen ends with ditto. I agree that it's like all of it. The size, it needs more. Zach, he needs an office. And to not have to wear waders when it's winter and his desk gets flooded out. That seems really inconvenient. But also, again, with the safety, being right there, the trucks, we've already talked about it, it correlates with even this building, carbon monoxide, you've got trucks, and anytime you're pulling them out, I mean, needs to be updated.
Ditto?
Too early for that.
No, I mean, I agree, I look back at the water. I know when we were over there, there was the discussion of the leaky roofs, and that goes back to the mold, and this building versus that building, I know they're technically two separate buildings, but, water issues are a big concern of mine, always have been, because it goes back to our staff's health and safety, which should be a big concern. And they do a fabulous job with the equipment that they have, but you have to have working equipment to do that fabulous job. That makes a lot of difference. They need room to do that maintenance as well as provide that service to our residents. So, yeah, space is a big piece.
One of the things that caught my attention, was how great the equipment looks and the need, because you keep getting equipment, right? We're growing, or we need to make sure we're maintaining what we have, that bay and the space to maintain what you already have, where you don't have to take everything out to get to the, what you have in the back row or whatever, but, I mean, that's what makes everything last longer, is if we're able to maintain it. If we can't, just costs us money.
Yeah, the space clearly seems to be compromised, but I guess I'm gonna go back to kind of some of the questions I had before. Are there injuries related to, the small space? Are there near misses? Are there,
Yes, years ago, that's maybe Mayor could help me with the year, we had an injury from a trip and fall from a wing being down, and a previous employee had tripped and hurt their shoulder. It's confined spaces when you're trying to lose weight to pass by one wing to get by the next truck. I didn't have to lose weight though.
Well, I hope that you don't have any to lose.
Oh, you're right.
so if there aren't any records of injuries, I mean, And it's a great job by the team, because you gotta be like tripping over your stuff, and to try and do the maintenance, I can't even imagine that nobody's getting hurt out there, so. Yeah, it's very tight, and it's gotta be a serious injury risk. That's all I have.
Well, like I said, I think everyone's gonna point it out, it's too tight. I think everybody is gonna agree with the same things.
Yeah, that's the hard part. You look at, I would say, when it comes to maintenance, and you're taking your hydraulics out to try to clean them in between salt moves and whatnot, that freezing and thawing is a damaging factor. You're going through more hoses, which is decreasing in time and response time, because I know everybody likes to get up in the morning and have their snow plowed off in front of them. Go ahead, Mr. Chair,
This is a cool question. I'm just gonna tell you one thing, we do have a new plow truck coming, it's been almost 2.5 years in the making, but it is coming, so we will have 4, just so you guys are aware of that.
So there's no space for the new equipment.
Yeah, we're gonna get part, something's going outside.
Something has to go outside.
We're thinking about a door right here.
That's news to
Everybody
Joe,
can see
right?
our new truck.
Joe's like, yeah, why not? Put his office on this side.
Absolutely.
It'd be just like
We'll
that.
park with it.
Yes.
That's great.
And that slab that's out there is gonna keep deteriorating, so you're gonna have, that issue is not gonna solve itself.
Salt, not like concrete.
Yeah.
Concrete does not like salt, let's put
Right,
that
the
in
other
the
way
right
The
around.
water weights are more
Question
Okay.
related,
You know.
sorry, a quick question related to that. So, with you drive down Ingham County Road around here, and you see a new addition going in everywhere, right? And, the roads that you guys are gonna have to maintain, the overall, I mean, it's gotta be growing by, what, X%, which, those trucks need to be ready to go, right? I mean, I guess I'm just looking for how much, do you know how much the road demand to plow those roads is growing each year, like?
Yeah, they probably have road hours that are calculated for each time they pay for road hours. And so they're probably, that's a figure that we could probably investigate to research to find out. You know, I know the drivers know how many hours they did this year, how many hours they did this year, but that's also based on snow too, so.
Yeah, there's that.
Right now, Mr. Chair, if I may, there's 80 miles of road involved.
Okay.
So, and with the trucks we have, the new one coming, whatever, we're hoping to get, I mean, Zach, check me if I'm wrong, but 6-inch snowfall, everybody gets around in 8 hours and it's about gone. You know, now we're gonna go back and do drifting and these things the following day, or cleanups as necessary, whatever, and they won't necessarily need to be all, you know, of the trucks, whatever, but, trying to at least get to that. And we're pretty close already, even without the new one.
So let's say there's a snowfall of like 10 inches or whatever. I mean, do you gotta bring the trucks in and then maintenance before you go back out? You can run for like 24 hours and then you gotta bring X truck in and do something to it, or does it?
Zach?
Yes, fuel would be and manpower would be our biggest limitations with that. We are not regulated by hours of service with it being an emergency vehicle, but we all have our limitations for how long it's safe to have a driver in that seat. We do run a bare bones crew. We have one driver for each truck, and if we had a prolonged snow event, it would be hard to maintain that level of service. We would need more staff to do that. With this addition of the truck and the front end loader, I think we'll be somewhere 10-inch snowfall. We're gonna be out there 10, 12 hours. And that would be the best case scenario. Usually those heavier snowfalls really slow us down.
So Zach, anyone retiring in the near future would be a great job for them to apply for?
We're always looking.
Hey, I see our newest plow driver.
4 days, I got 4 days left.
Oh, congratulations.
Congratulations, I can't wait.
Good one, Ryan.
So,
And we're gonna move
where
forward.
can I get that application?
We're gonna move forward.
I don't have anything for them.
I guess my biggest thing is the safety when they work on the trucks. Been around for so long when Zach and Phil, if they're not skinny, trying to lift the bed of the trucks up to get underneath to fix something, it can only go up this much, and I'm watching them put a 4x4 or something stuck in there so they can work on it, because they can't lift it up. I always laugh at them, I'm like, oh, this is an OSHA 4x4, and they just laugh and keep working, but they have to do what they have to do. That part, I know we can't go up, but it's just the issue of not being able for them to have the room to actually do what they need to do on these trucks.
So there
In
is
the
a
winter, in
limit?
the summer, yeah, they can pull it out and do that, but winter it wasn't, it's not high enough to lift them up, so. That's kind of been my thing, just the safety part of when they're trying to work on all their rigs.
And Mr. Chair, maybe Zach can speak to this, but part of that is not having the right equipment. You're using jacks, not a lift, so.
Correct.
Because you don't have it.
Wasn't this a lift on here?
You can't raise the box high enough to get the safety stops that are on the truck underneath the box, so you have to resort to wood blocks.
Can I ask a question? How often would you need a lift? Weekly?
It depends on breakdown, and what that is. Some of the major failures that we would have, we would take to a company for repair, but, simple maintenance, it would improve our safety and our efficiency to be able to lift it up and get under there, crawling around.
Greasing,
Improves it.
washing, those would be where it has to be raised, so you just can't get to it from underneath.
To add to that, if there was a lift that was adequate to actually lift all the equipment, could it be like dual purpose where it would also benefit the fire department?
Absolutely.
We had a height,
They have mobile versions.
Just to answer that, the fire trucks are significantly heavier
Yeah,
than
they
the plow trucks.
Right, but I mean, I was just saying, like, is that something where, like, if it was something that was put into consideration later down the road, obviously we would wanna go for something that could be multi-purpose as opposed to just one or the other. Just where my brain is going.
Chad?
I really don't have a lot more to say. I mean, my other thing, and I know Andy will probably touch on it, is structural, stability of that building. I guess that's one of my main things that really has, I mean, that's been brought up, but space obviously has been with the structural stability of it is my big concern too.
Mr. Chair, that's exactly what I have underlined here, was the structural stability. I see where, the corner of the building got a crack in it, so I can see it drooping, sinking, whatever, but Andy talked about that earlier, about the structural stability of the building.
Andy, in addition?
In addition to that, the fuel tanks and the fuel dispensing stations right up against the building, it's not only a safety concern, but it's also something that we're requiring of other businesses. So if it's so important, we're gonna require it of you, we should lead by example. And then also just as a note of reference, the Public Works Director in Nowben, his name is Joe Glaze. He's been there for a number of years. You know Joe by chance? Everyone? He moved to Baldwin now. He's a Baldwin resident. And he's been in Nowben for a number of years. And the reason I think that's even more important is that he designed and helped design their Public Works building in Nowben. And it was long enough ago that they're gonna find out what worked and what didn't work. So he'd be a great person to include. I just wanted to drop that name real quick, Joe. Or we can talk about that later. I'll give you his cell number. But I think, again, back to the fuel dispensing, and those things are an issue safety-wise, but also from the optics. That's my additional point.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just, Andy's being too nice. That violates the fire code. Okay. I just wanna make sure everybody around the table understands that. He is being too nice.
I haven't been accused of that in a while. Holy cow.
He didn't say it.
So question, the Nowben facility is a good facility? That's what you're saying?
It's a good facility, but it's also such a great learning curve because you learn what you do right, but you also learn from what you did wrong. And Joe's been there long enough.
Research. I am. It's like we should go there and look at this.
I'll give you his number too.
Mr. Chairman, I really don't have much more to add. I think Zach, kudos, ditto. Kudos to you and everyone else for having that. It's gotta be tough. A lot of inadequacies with that as well, but I think we've all pretty much hit on those, so.
I think the height of the
You can always say
building,
ditto now.
yeah, I think the height of the building would benefit a lot if they could raise the boxes up safety wise and stuff. And then also, I think if there was a wash bay that could be used, for both departments.
Wash bays are.
The fire trucks could be cleaned and ours could be, and we'd have just one facility with everything in it. Just to maintain the trucks, keep them clean.
I have an additional question. Does the fire department have a generator for emergency power when things go out?
No.
So you don't have an emergency generator either, because I noticed that was on here, and I know water and the electric and the public works side is too close together and causing issues, but
A former town supervisor hooked us up, we've got 2 diesel generators out back that are from the military, it was through the DNR program, we got them pretty cheap,
okay,
but they are not hooked up to anything at this point, and that's the money to get everything hooked up, and all you wanna do is,
It's not cheap to hook it up.
okay.
So during a power outage, we manually lift the doors with about 10 guys to try to lift the doors up and hold them up with pipe poles so we get rids out.
Oh, jeez.
Same here.
And our radios go down because we have no power, so, yeah.
That's something to be, the thing in my head, and this goes to a solution, and I know we're not there yet, but if we were, phasing things, one of my first thoughts is if we did a fire hall at the prime location, could we repurpose that with generators and some other stuff to add for public works and things like that, and phase things in a little bit, that's we're not there yet. So I was asking about the generators. Sorry.
No, I
I jumped
totally
ahead.
agree with what you're thinking. We just can't go there yet.
Great, I know, sorry.
Patience, patience.
What was the cost to have the generators wired in?
Remember what the cost came back at?
I can't remember, it was a couple of years ago now.
I think it was $12,000.
12 to 15,000, I think.
Yeah, between 12 and 15 on one quote.
But were the generators even enough to run the entire building, or?
Oh, yeah, they'll run the township, or the city.
They were big.
Those are those military ones that they use,
We just don't know what to build.
yeah.
Right.
Well, the
They've
DNR
been
has
sitting
had
there for
numerous sizes,
That
so I was
makes a
just
difference
wondering
when
what
you're-
size.
10 years, those are the big ones
Okay.
that for overseas.
These are like, I think they're 20 kilowatt,
20 kWs, three-phase?
I just throw a couple comment, or one comment, I know Tom asked a question about going to check out now then. I would like to throw that out as far as, so people can see other facilities, I think it would be a good solution to go see areas that have recently built, either city halls, fire stations, maintenance facilities,
City Hall.
yep, city halls, I just
Combination.
Yep, just to toss that out there so people can get an idea of what we have and what they have, and just so they can see the difference.
I think St. Francis just did their brand new one, I mean, literally last year,
I just
brand
looked this
spanking
way
new.
because, yep,
St. Francis built that one, Zimmerman just built, yeah, so there's places around that we could really tour at that, when we get to that point, just to throw it out there.
Yeah, but I mean, it would behoove us to take all the research information that we have that's closely available, because otherwise you can't make a decision with, or even a plan if you're not educated to do so.
And again, I'm not saying that we have to go there because they built new.
No.
I'm opened up to
It's
anything,
information, it's information. I don't think anything that's being said right now at the table is being taken out of context, because there's so much research of, I don't know,
Well, if you don't even know, yeah.
you don't know what you don't know, and you have bits and pieces of inadequacy, you have a lot of structural inadequacy, you have record inadequacy, we have all these things that we're pointing out. Now we have to try to build mentally, to start out with, how do we start from where we're at and projectively build to where we need to go.
Mr. Chair, that's an excellent point, that you all have the impression of what's deficient here. If you go see something that's new, where you want to be, it will become even more apparent, the deficiencies that are here.
Yes.
So one of the things we have to do is try to discover on touring or setting up schedule to do that.
We can look at that logistically for a future meeting.
Yep. Okay.
Could I ask one last question? Sorry to go question. Back to the Nowden, facility, do they have an overhead crane?
Don't believe so.
Okay.
They don't.
You been there?
They don't have a crane.
I've been there plenty of times, they don't.
Have you?
Yeah,
If you
every
needed an
facility
overhead
doesn't
crane,
have that crane in
They
it.
do have install ceilings.
5 ton?
They do.
10 ton? What, have you evaluated that on size wise?
We haven't gotten to that point.
The left off the box information. Okay. Any other directional positive comments to bring to the table that we need to address before we move forward? I think we've covered a lot of information as far as the homework side goes.
I have a quick question about the salt and gravel, the storage space. What are other places doing? If ours is inadequate, what is the alternative?
For storing salt and part of that problem was, the structure is shifting and moving, and needs to be reformed up. Can you address the structural inadequacies that are going on with the salt storage?
Yes, it's the inadequacies or possible.
The problems that attach to it.
The beams are buckling, they're cracking and moving. We have a lot of movement from where their fixed position was initially. The tongue and groove boards have deteriorated to the point where material is coming through it. It's saturated, it holds water.
The salt is eating it away.
Yeah, the salt is eating
It's
away.
just-
How old is it?
how
How
it
old
is.
is it?
That was built the same time the building was.
So that was built in
Yeah,
'82 then?
especially in the.
2002.
Oh, 2000.
Isn't there like big damage on the back corner over here with this?
All of it has quite a bit of damage.
There's a few patches on it, yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
just to clarify, the fire station was built in 2001, is that correct?
2002.
Two? And
One
this was-
into two.
This was 82. Correct?
When was maintenance
Okay,
added?
thank you.
If this was
which-
82,
which
when
section?
they kept adding on to it?
The bigger, the last 6 bays to the east, I believe was a 2002 timeframe as well, same time as the fire station.
One more thought. My mind's thinking a few things here. Chief, could one of the plow trucks open up their box inside the fire
I
station?
believe so.
Absolutely, yeah.
What was that question?
The plow trucks, could they open up their box completely
In there, okay.
in the fire station? Just a thought that I had, and, because I don't know what the ceiling heights were, and I didn't measure.
Jay, you've been here since the creation.
Not that way.
Creation of the world?
No, the question that I have, with seeing what you see, the deterioration side, as it stands out, what are the things that stand out most to you from what you see?
Public safety. Public safety is huge. We have our escape door over there under the exit sign. And that is, I mean, there have been many pretentious meetings in Bowden, there's no doubt about that. It is quite interesting. We have another revelation that I'm just gonna bring up. And this is a fun little poster of a hangman's post with Bowden City Council over it that was hung up at one of the bars in town here. And there's only one, so you can guess where that is. That was sent to the sheriff's department actually by me, with a question of when does free speech turn into terrorism? Because that was pretty ugly. Anyway, right? So some of those things are here. I don't think that guy's gonna do that, but I don't know what's gonna come walking in that door. So when we think about this room, there's 13 of you right now and a few people right now. If somebody said, get out, that's the only way. You know, most of you guys probably don't even realize that that door is there. And the other thing about that is we have a screen door on it that opens the wrong way. So for a quick
I'm like, there's a child gate.
a quick
So,
egress, that, well, that's a
I'm
dog gate, but it ain't, I think Scott's dog runs out there. So that's an egress problem. So, you know, what a dais would look like, literally protection for the city council, whoever they are gonna be, you know, we see what the world is turning into, whatnot, safety. You know what I mean? How could we get people out? You know, that door, that's a relatively new addition to that door, that opening bar there, if you will. And basically what that is more so is just to let people know if you push here, that door's gonna open. Up to any other point in time, there used to be a doorknob there where you actually had to turn it. You know, so, when we were doing the incorporation hearing, this was set up as a courtroom. This literally was the judge's courtroom. And I was sitting over here, we were standing room only in this business. And the whole time, besides listening to the proceeding, was, if anything ever goes awry in here, somebody better know, somebody better know, get over to that door if something does go awry. You know what I mean? So people could get out. So that is absolutely huge to me. So public safety.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna add one quick thing, on this too, that is thought of. We also have a cleanup day here, so when you guys think about the buildings, we also have cleanup day, which is May 3rd, but it is very tight in here. We can't block off the fire station for the first responder for the calls, it's always backed up. It's, you know, you have to go around, so it's a lot of maneuvering, so if you guys just take that into consideration as well.
Mr. Chair, kind of to Councilmember Rush's point, and it's a question for the fire chief, I mean, are there access issues at this location with traffic coming in and out for city hall business, or the location, the access out on the 45 that create problems from a site design standpoint?
There's not a turning lane, is there?
No, there's no turning lane. I just wanna clarify, access to get on the 45?
Yeah, kind of both, you know, your access on and off of 45, but then if you're maneuvering in here, and you got firefighters coming in, you got public coming in, and
Well,
works going on.
for instance, whenever there's an election or there is the cleanup day, we have to cone off the fire pad over there. So if we get a call, all the firefighters are driving in the same entrance as we're going out with rigs, which is not a good way to do it. Especially if, you know, somebody's in a rush or whatever, and then you would still do have the traffic on 45. You're gonna have the traffic on 45 or 9. The location down at 9:45, it's big enough there that we could have multiple entrances and have a dedicated firefighter entrance and a dedicated, you know, truck entrance off onto the road where it would be only one way in. If you get a chance to go to the Zimmerman station, you can see how they've dedicated where the public parking area is and where there's firefighter only entrance and where the rigs go out, and that's the safety issue of how you can do that. Yeah, especially if we have to block this off, it becomes problematic, and, you know, we've had to block it off, numerous times during the year, you end up blocking it off, and it's, you know, it's location, it's one of those things, and, you know, we have people, because of the entrances that come, the firefighter will come in back here when these guys are working on a call and have to maneuver around the salt sand shed to park over on the side to get into the station, and they have to run across the front doors, you know, it's just some safety issues there. So, does that answer the question?
Mr. Chair, maybe ask if Zach or Joan had anything they kind of wanted to highlight?
Anything additional, Joan, Zach, Phil?
I think you guys did a pretty good job of covering the bases. The same things, the safety issues in the shop, the clean air makeup, having the exhaust in our workspace, the CO2 coming up here, all really valid points. I see a lot of room for growth with the elections, that seems to be a real sticky point. We've been very fortunate, but if we have like a snow event or some sort of bad storms or tornadoes, and we have to respond to that, and we're having an event here, it makes it quite difficult with our equipment where it is.
I think my biggest thing is elections. The parking is not adequate at all. It's really hard to get people, like, I think you said, Teresa, you know, people standing out in the rain, you feel bad, you can't, you know, we tried our best during the general election to get as many people in the building as we could, but that's, you know, is that an issue as fire code, how many people you can have back there? I'm not a fearful person, so I don't let a lot scare me, but, you know, security is an issue, especially how crazy this world's getting. So that is something that I think, like Jay said, that's something that really needs to be looked at in the near future.
Mr. Chair. There's one more piece to that, you know, in general, if you have a situation like this and you're going through and you're analyzing it and you're picking up, find 4, 5, 6 things, you're doing a pretty good job. With all of the issues going on around here, you're bound to miss some. You know, so I just wanna make sure that everybody, you know, we haven't identified everything here. There's gonna be something like you bring up the screen, there's like, ooh, is that in this report? You know, things like that, cause did you possibly catch them all? No.
Phil, did you have anything?
Just kind of what the chief said with the firefighters coming through the back, if I'm coming out with a loader, it's really tight. If they're coming in fast, one of us is gonna lose that battle.
As a group, anything else needs to be added? I think we've all done a fairly good job of scratching the surface. Okay, let's bring it back in the box. Next thing on the agenda is scheduling the next meeting. May 22nd.
I will be out of town May 22nd.
May 15th.
Let's
How about May 29th?
Any of the three work for me.
What's that?
Any of the three work for me.
I would prefer
He's
not
out of
the
town.
29th.
29th is Memorial Day, isn't it?
No.
Oh. Not the 29th.
15th is a holiday for me.
15th, no.
It's law enforcement. I'm at the Capitol.
So how about,
Why?
rather not the 29th?
Yeah, but if we have to, I can.
I can do that.
Let me see a show of hands for the,
We'll just have to go anyway.
Don't mind.
let me see a show of hands for the 29th.
That can make it or not make it?
Make it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Make
the
it.
question is, can you make
We're not voting on it yet. He's
Yeah.
making it.
Who can make May 29th?
May 29th, Thursday.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion for the 29th?
Yes, it's good, I'm good.
I'll make a motion to be back here.
We have a motion on the floor for the 29th. Do I have a second for that? Motion to Ann seconded, Tom seconded. Pete?
Who's
made the
first?
motion. Mike made the motion, Tom seconded it. All in favor for the 29th? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes, hear it. Any other?
7 PM as usual.
7 PM.
Thank you.
Miscellaneous information and communication.
I have a couple questions. I talked to the chief on this, a couple of the committee members. And we didn't read farther for a solution, but again, we started looking ahead. I did run into a former classmate, and I think he knows you, Andy. He's part of Infrastructure Buildings. Fairly local company, but he asked, first off, if we were tied to a builder with the blueprints, or do other people have access to that? I talked with Chief Case a little bit about, okay, the, original building, is that what's needed? What could be cut down? Quite certain they could shave quite a bit off the price. He also said, when I mentioned about a 100-year building, he said, you don't get a 100-year building. He said, your roof is gonna most likely need some slight repairs after 7 years, after 20 years, you're gonna need some repair. But that there were multiple options. He said we built apartments, I believe he said Rogers, now then, he said we put up 3 buildings and now then. So I don't remember if we did their Oak Grove public building or if it was the now then. But again, if we do have a timetable, I don't think it hurts to bring in other opinions on this, get some people to take a look at it. He said you can even do, steel buildings where you're putting masonry in front of it and you can make them just as, have the longevity as you can with the tip-ups. And again, as was pointed out though, I think we also have to look at total cost, because I put in a 4% bonding rate. Even at 10 million, you're talking, depending on the number of households here, $260 a year per resident. Now I know that we're hoping to grow, but if we could get some projections, where are we looking at the households being in 5, 10, 15, 20 years? Because again, we got a truck coming in. If we end up adding on the building, we're probably gonna have to do something with public works, and you have to look at what does that dollar amount come to when you're talking the number of households that we have. And I don't know if we have projections on that yet, or what they're thinking, but I think that's something that needs to be taken into consideration as we start to look at what some of these plans are. Because it looks like everyone's in agreement that everything here is too tight. It's just where do you fall between Cadillac and getting by?
Mr. Chair. So I think what you're talking about kind of goes beyond the scope of the committee's task at this point. The committee is supposed to make a recommendation to the city council as to, do you modify or look at new buildings? Then the council takes that recommendation, decides, yep, we're gonna go build a new building, and then they'll decide a process to go forward with
But
designing
does
that
the
building.
committee, I know if I'm on the committee and I have to answer the residents, did you look at what the cost was gonna be, et cetera? That's a huge part.
You're right.
And for us not to be a part of that, if that isn't part of it, I'm wasting my time being here.
Yeah, but we're not gonna have any control over the spending side.
No, we're not, but I
And
think.
even if they made a decision that was totally against what we bring to them, you're still gonna answer to those individuals, and you're still gonna feel like that you wasted your time, and you're still gonna feel for all that. The only thing that we can do is do the best that we can to put the best research information in front of them, give them the best advisement that we possibly can, and whether they follow it or not, that's on them.
And you don't think that cost has anything to do with research?
Cost has a lot to do with it, because we bring that to the table, that's what we're.
Okay, that's where I was
That's
getting.
all of what we're doing, is just trying to eliminate that cost side, but the answering to the question is you're still gonna have to face them whether or not, because when I sat down and did the math, it was $450 a month added.
Yeah, that was on, when I talked with Chief about what they could get by with that would not be bare bones. It was obviously gonna be more than that.
Right, so you look at, that's the ultimate job that we have, is trying to put the best information forward to build a plan to get to where they need to go. And we have to investigate the costs, we have to investigate how we cover those costs, we have to investigate what needs to be done, we have to investigate all the work that has to go into it, whether it be whatever the structural things that have to be taken care of. That's the task of our job, is to try to do all that homework so that we can give them the best advisory possible.
We wouldn't necessarily use specific builders for that level of endpoint input yet. That would be something that goes to the council, and then they look at bidding the project, and, then they start making those decisions.
I guess, yeah,
Or
and
more
that part was,
generalized.
I was more looking, and maybe the mayor could, that we would have access, if there are projections, what would we be looking at for what we think we might see for households here?
Well, that kind of, yeah, we do have it, and my thought was the next meeting, we can talk about growth in the city.
Okay.
And then also, okay.
Can we get those plan information, because I think that will answer partial of the questions.
That too.
And some of the research and homework that was done prior to this brought to the next meeting, so that therefore we have a better understanding of all that homework that was done prior to, so we have a better educated position of what was.
So then we would wanna quantify what the space is here, do we have a perception of it? And then tie it to the personnel, tie it to future personnel, future equipment, et cetera, so that, again, as Tom said, you're quantifying, not just saying, well, they need more space.
And I wasn't saying, I'm saying if this is gonna be multiple meetings, I don't know if they can come up with that in a month or if it takes 3 months, but just so that at some point we know, yeah, we are trying to get some of these projections.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yes.
Another thing that you guys can do too is, go on the city's website and look at the incorporation statements, the incorporation, the judge's decision, that decision. Read that. It is about 28 pages or so of absolute bliss, as far as I'm concerned. You'll come out of the other end of that saying, I didn't know this city was that good. This is rather amazing. That talks about growth, that talks about what we see in the future, and all the reasons. One other thing that came out of that, just so you know, is that we have the lowest taxes at this point in time of all of our surrounding cities and all but one of the surrounding townships. So keep in mind, all of what you see, good, bad, or indifferent, whatever has been done with that mentality in mind, if you will, and there's no debt. And we have debt, but for other things, not for necessarily that. That being said, the question really will become, also I believe it's possible for you guys to discuss anyway, what cost will the community bear?
And Jay, and this is where I think Brian and I, before the department started coming here, so that people understand that there are gonna be taxes coming up that this board had nothing to do with. How far back was it, Brian, when we were talking about the number of miles of roads that needed repair back in '03 or '04? And it came in the millions of dollars. And a couple of board members at the time said, what if we just grind the roads up back into gravel? Couldn't we save that money? So you multiply that from 2003 to 2004 to today, and again, that's just another expense that's been getting kicked down the road.
To clarify a little bit, out here, our standards, mile of road is about $500,000. So, and that is a reclaim and overlay, something like what Mike was just talking about, which is not a complete reconstruction. So.
Can I add a question, kind of a thought? Just as a resident, I guess, of Baldwin, the city of Baldwin now, and having been here a long time, seen asphalt go in and a lot of roads that still have needed repair since I, moved here, but others being fixed or added or whatever. But with the thinking ahead, when we're asking for funds or tax dollars, if there's benefit other than what they have already been used to having. I know the Zimmerman Fire Department, it's amazing in there, or the building, whatever they call their building, because it has other purposes for the residents. And I mean, that's just something to keep in mind is, how are we benefiting with the change?
Mr. Chair, in 2021, that facility was built for $6 million. So we have a number to look at and think about. It's now 2025. That's going to be different, whatever we would think about doing moving forward, that's kind of a starting point.
I'm just gonna chime in, 5.7 million, I'm a numbers guy. 7,800 people currently in the town, so we got 3,200 households. 3,200? Yep, right around there. And we're currently doing 2 road projects, 100th and 297th, for 3 miles of road with engineering and everything, it's about 3.5 million. So it's almost closer to a little bit as $1 million. So.
What's the street?
100th and 297th are the road projects we're trying to tackle.
So that's full depth reclamation and then.
Engineering, everything in there.
Well, that's completely modified, reconstructed,
Yeah.
there's a whole lot of things happening.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Have you looked at like chip seal or something like
Let's
that?
not go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's a whole different ball.
I was just
throwing out the
Tom, let's not go down there rabbit hole, because that's a whole different subject matter when it comes to roads. It's a whole,
Yeah,
You can come next Thursday
Yeah.
here
Yeah,
at 7
thank you, Bruce.
and talk about 100th and 297 and see where it goes.
Yeah.
Let's not put the cart before the horse.
One other point that was brought to me in a private setting is all of us privately can't reach out to the city and ask them for information in reference to the committee. It cannot happen. They don't have time. There's been a lot of, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that, individually, and the city doesn't have time. So, bring it to the committee and let it go on record and have the information sorted out so we can do our research that way.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one question for council and staff. So when the architect was here 2 years ago and gave you the price on the potential of the building, did they at any time do a space study needs exactly, so we would have documentation or any work to work with here? Okay, so then that goes to my next point, then what exactly is our scope of work to be done for them?
Our scope is to do the investigative homework, to facilitate a solution to the need that they have.
So to decide whether to build or remodel,
Build.
construct new, and then give them our opinion.
Correct.
Mr. Chair, but we will try and do that space needs analysis that wasn't done for that building, so that it is more quantifiable.
That's gonna help them make their determination. Which would
So
actually.
that question that you're having, we need at this table so that therefore.
Well, and that goes back though to the prior discussion, that space study needs should act as more transparent documentation for the electorate. So they'll see that, they'll have the numbers of what was recommended be done, for them to make.
And the safety issues and, yes.
Yeah.
Were you gonna say something?
I have to concur with the gentleman down here and with you also. Looking ahead, thinking ahead, want to put the best information forward, and recommend that to the council and all of this stuff. And my point is, we cannot do that unless, we cannot put the best information forward unless we have the financial figures, or at least some semblance of the financial figures. And then with that in mind, and that can come down the road sometime. That's up to you to decide when that comes in. But at some point, we have to confront what it's gonna cost taxes wise, what it's gonna cost financially, and so forth and so on. We have to confront that and pass that along to the board also. And so, that's my statement, thank you.
Thank you for that information, because that's part of the reason I believe in. Any other comments, questions, statements?
Would the solution include like a short-term plan and an interim and then a long-term?
But that's called our solution.
All right, I just wanna make sure.
But that's called our
It's not
solution.
like we're in a box. and
No,
we-
no, but we're creating the box.
Got it.
We're creating that box right now.
I have a question. Not a really question, just what do you want us to do for the next meeting? What's our projection of what we're gonna go discuss the next meeting, so we all just don't do anything and come back?
Yeah, what do you need us to bring back to this?
Bring back, discuss, research, what do we wanna do?
Mr. Chair, I think we can email everyone the incorporation report. If you read that, that'll kind of give you a good basis as to where the city is going generally. And then we can we'll do some of that work behind the scenes to quantify existing spaces and kind of try and, as a staff, project needs to present that for discussion at the next meeting. And then my thought would be, meeting after that, we would try to get the council's approval to tour facilities as a group, because I think it's beneficial if we go as a group, and it's also beneficial for the other agencies that they don't have this number of people calling, hey, can I come look at your building, walk through your facility? So if we organize it and do it as a group, my experience is cities are happy to do that.
Right, understood. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I just want to know what I need to do
For homework.
for homework.
I get it.
Mr. Chair. Mike and Mr. Marshall just made a comment about the taxes that we're going to be thinking about of our fellow citizens of Baldwin if we start looking at remodeling, building, whatever. there's going to be a couple other factors that are going to be competing interests within our city and within our overall tax base, or property taxes. School district. Everybody knows what the school district's doing with their task force. They're gonna be coming out with a bond issue. Then the other is, we just heard the other night from Commissioner Schumacher about Sherburne County and the fact that they're going to be raising Sherburne County taxes because of some funding they didn't get from the state of Minnesota by 10%, minimum. Correct, Mr. Mayor? And so we start, you know, and this is the task that we have, is to start looking at our buildings. Are we gonna remodel, are we gonna build, you know, whatever it is. But the overall tax bill to the citizens of Baldwin is gonna be affected by if we do this, Sherburne County does this, Princeton Schools does this, and all of a sudden, instead of potentially Baldwin just raising because we're gonna build this, we're gonna remodel this, there could be a bewitching hour of triple hit maybe at some point in the near future, and the citizens are going to go. Now, it's not all our, it would potentially not be the fault of this committee or the fault of the council, but all of a sudden it all comes at one time.
So the English
So I'm
language,
just saying, that's something we need to think about.
yeah, but that's something that the city council would have to start addressing, letting the public, they have to pay attention to the public information as it is now.
Right.
But letting the public know that when you look at that bonding issue, that's causing our tax, part of the tax issue. You look at the other issue that it has nothing to do with us. The $2.55 that we're charging has nothing to do with the $1,000 that you're seeing.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but all of a sudden, when you get your tax statement, you look at the bottom line, and you go, what the heck? And so anyway,
I have a question about, like with the schools, they have, when people get to vote on that. Will they vote on this, or just the council votes, and then that goes ahead?
For the school referendum or for whatever
No,
comes
for
out of this
what
committee?
we're talking about,
That would be
it just,
council.
that goes through, taxes go up,
Yep,
people
council.
don't get any, like, yes, no, yeah,
That's
like with the
just because
schools.
we haven't looked at it.
but the
The
council.
difficulty is, once we give the, like I was saying, is we give the information to the council, and the council doesn't go with anything that we say on that documentation whatsoever, and all of a sudden we got a $50.2 billion building that's going up. All we can say is, here's what the information that we gave them.
But the
But I
council
don't see
could
our,
take,
I don't see our council doing that to us. The reason why that they have us as a group is so that therefore when that decision is made, they can still look good.
Mr. Chair, reality check, you're our cover.
That's what I just said.
I believe the question was, the way I heard the question was, does it go to the referendum of the voters, or is it decided by the council? So St. Francis did theirs years ago, it was just under that threshold, so it did not go to a referendum, correct?
No, city council voted.
Correct, so that was the question, as I heard, was, is this decision gonna be made by council, or is it gonna go to a referendum?
Correct, and it would be by council, and it would be, let me take one step back and say, so we know that Baldwin Township as a whole is worth $1.2 billion. Everything that's in Baldwin Township put together is $1.2 billion. That's significant because 3% of that is gonna be our maximum debt that we could ever hold, which is about $26, $27 million. So if we come up with a $15 million something, whatever that is here, you know what I mean, that is gonna take a whole lot of the capacity for us to quote, borrow money, right? So now what the council's also gonna have to do is when we're thinking about road projects and things like that, in the case of the one that Mr. Rush was just talking about, 100th Street 297, that moves forward, whatever, $4 million, that will be a bonding issue for the town. We do not have dollars in the coffer to pay cash for that, so that will be a bonding issue. We have never assessed any of the project's costs, whatever, to the people. You know, you hear about, you get an assessment, they resurface your road, whatever, and you have a tax assessment that comes with that. We have never done that. We have always considered it to be, you know, the whole road structure is everybody's problem, right? So one big pool. And so the problem with that is, if we were to decide to be 20% of the project cost. That could be a big number, big swing in what the numbers could be depending on cost, but 20% of the project cost. Then the bonding and the debt we could or would incur by that does not go to our bottom line or our maximum capacity. It would not register against the $26 million maximum, if you would at this point in time. Doesn't mean we don't have to pay it back, doesn't mean we wouldn't raise the levy in order to cover this, it doesn't mean any of that, right? But there is a maximum capacity, there's a maximum amount that we can do. We have a couple of ways to hedge that just a little bit if that's what we wanted to do, but again, like I say, right now, we're starting literally with zero debt. So, whatever we do moving forward, we'll have to do that. And I do believe, I don't know what the exact number is, Dan, you might know, it might get to a threshold that is so large, we just heard this here now, I don't know what that number is, and for us, I don't know what that number is, where we would have to do a referendum in order to be able to do that. Yes, then the people would vote.
Mayor's correct, there are scenarios, depending on how the city council chooses to finance a project, where a referendum is required, or there's other scenarios where a referendum is not required unless you get a petition of a certain number of registered voters to force a referendum. But there are also scenarios that the council can utilize that doesn't have any referendum component to it. So.
Mr. Chair? To ask about the school tax bond that is potentially, that's just because our residents use the Princeton School District, right? So like hypothetically, Baldwin ended up building a school or, what?
Mr. Chair, so school, when you're talking, school districts are like another layer of government that they don't follow city boundaries, they overlay city boundaries. So all of Baldwin, except for a couple properties on the south end, are in the Princeton School District. So anything to do with schools is governed and decided by the Princeton School District. It has nothing to do with the city council deciding to build a school or, so it's almost like the post office. Post office is completely separate of city boundaries. That's why even with incorporation, your address doesn't change from Princeton or Zimmerman, although one of them you can write Baldwin on.
Both of them.
Both. I do, Paul.
I'm just curious.
Does anybody want to?
Right, and like, say, cover, you know, and like, if you start building schools, why couldn't, you know? I don't know.
Does anyone want the incorporation hearing emailed to them? Otherwise, we do have it online.
I'll look online.
I can look online.
I do.
Mr. Chair, I just suggest emailing a link to everybody.
Okay. Okay.
That'd be great. Okay.
And it just needs to be the incorporation report.
It's awesome. You guys will enjoy reading it.
I will. Any other business brought to the table?
2 to 1 wild.
It is 8:53.
I like it, I like it.
There's the update.
2 to 1.
Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
A second.
All in favor of adjourning the meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned at 8:55.
Andy, did you leave that report or are you gonna wait on that?
too? I can email too.
Okay.
I don't know when we wanted that anyway.
I think you should email it to me and I'll send it to Dan and kind of ask when that will be.
Okay. There's pictures with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, that way we get it on the plate.
Okay. Thanks, Joe.